Hi and welcome to another Watch Geek video. Today, we take a look at one of my favorite watches in the collection, the King Seiko 4502. The story of this watch is the story of its movement, Seiko 45. Not only because of its specs, which are impressive, but the history behind it. The Movement 45 was designed and produced at Daini factory and was the last generation of hand-built movements, as Seiko introduced automated production with the 52 and 56 movement generation, making this and the Suaz 61 caliber the last movements made the old way. It is a manual wind chronometer grade, true high-beat movement that beats at 36,000 bph. It comes with hacking and even an instant date change at midnight, something not even mechanical Grand Seikos of today have. It also looks nice with the full balance bridge and this brushing on the bridges. It's not going to win any beauty contests, but one cannot deny it looks pretty good, which is why I opted for custom-made clear caseback, so I can enjoy the movement and partially to save the gold medallion on the original caseback from wear. But back to the movement. Like I said, the specs are only part of the appeal. It's the history and the DNA that makes this one of the greatest movements Seiko ever made. This movement was not just race-bred, it was race-born. And by race, I mean the Astronomical Observatory chronometer competitions that used to be held up until the late 60s. These competitions can be seen as Formula One racing for watchmakers. And just like Formula One, manufacturers would bring movements designed specifically for the competition. These were uncompromising movements designed for only one thing: extreme accuracy. Just like a Formula One car is designed for speed only. Reliability, longevity, and serviceability were not even considered, as these movements were never offered to the public as actual watches, at least not in these extreme competition grades. There are two exceptions though, as two manufacturers did actually case competition-grade movements and sold them to the general public. The first one was Girard-Perregaux with their high-beat caliber 32A in 1967. And the second one was Seiko with this, the Movement 45. Seiko submitted 103 4520 movements in 1968, of which only 73 passed, and in the following 2 years, they submitted another 180 4580 movements, of which 153 passed, bringing the total of AOC models to 226. Since 45 is the only caliber Seiko did it with, and since Observatory chronometer versions achieved accuracy better than 1 second per day, caliber 45 remains officially the most accurate mechanical movement Seiko ever sold. That competition-grade version is still the holy grail of Seiko collectors, especially the 1968 4520. Even Seiko considered these movements very special, so they cased them in solid gold cases, and the 1968 version came with solid gold dial, hands, and markers as well. The retail price of these back in the 60s was 180,000 yen. Now for comparison, the Grand Seiko version of that watch costed 27,000 yen, so more than 6 times cheaper. This King Seiko version was the cheapest at 17,000 for regular and 20,000 for the officially certified chronometer version. Like that wasn't enough, Seiko offered this movement in another, 5th grade of accuracy, the Grand Seiko VFA, or very finely adjusted. These were not as limited as the Astronomical Observatory versions, but they were very exclusive since they were assembled from hand-picked parts and regulated to an astonishing mean daily rate of 60 seconds per month, so basically plus minus 2 seconds per day, which is what Rolex offers today with their newest movements. And let's not forget this was back in 1968. Even more impressive is the fact the specified accuracy was guaranteed for a period of 2 years after purchase. That thing costed 85,000 yen and is the one of only 2 VFA models Seiko offered, with the other one being Suaz caliber 61, considered the best automatic movement Seiko ever made. Although the VFA and the Astronomical Observatory versions are the best versions of this movement you can get, and watch collectors dream of getting them, I personally prefer the KS and regular GS versions. The reason for that is the way they look. The VFA and AOC have nice looking cases, but the KS and most GS models follow the grammar of design to the letter, making them one of the best models to represent that important part of Seiko history. Flat mirror-polished surfaces, sharp edges and angles on this give it a unique look that is the essence of what Taro Tanaka imagined when he came up with these designs. It's screaming Seiko and cannot be confused with anything else on the market. At 36mm in width, 42mm lug-to-lug, and under 10mm in thickness, it sits perfectly on my 6.7-inch wrist, while the polished surfaces and these strong lugs give it a lot of presence. To me, it's still one of the best-looking cases Seiko ever made. The crown is signed, but not like crowns of today that have some shallow laser etching. This has a deep, rich machining, making most of today's crowns pale in comparison. The crystal is pretty special as well, as it has a slight dome and is faceted to give the dial that little extra detail. The dial itself is very Seiko as well. Sunburst white with highly polished and faceted markers and hands that have a black line running through the middle, making them easily visible in anything but complete darkness. You might get the impression I find this watch to be perfect. And although it is one of my favorite watches ever, it's not perfect. The strong lugs require a very thick strap, otherwise they make it look flimsy. Even the highly regarded movement has its quirks. The second hand is not directly driven, so it stutters when fighting gravity, and the winding requires more force than my other watches, as the mainspring in this has more tension since it needs to store more energy. Because of this and the high beat nature of this movement, everything in it is at a lot more stress than usual, just like a high-performance supercar. So just like a supercar, you don't want to skip service on these, and you're reluctant to use it as a daily wear watch. That is why Seiko dropped the beat rate to 28,800 with the 52 and 56 calibers. So if you're looking for a vintage Grand or King Seiko to wear every day, I would advise you to check out those. But my heart would always choose this, just as my heart would always choose a Lexus LFA over a Toyota Corolla, no matter how much more reliable and reasonable the other one is. This is not just because of the high beat nature and the incredible accuracy I know this movement can achieve, but also because this was one of the movements that was there when the Swiss got scared so much they decided to cheat and eventually canceled the competition while it was being held. But that is a topic for a whole new video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and until the next video, bye.